Hey, what is up, Walk-ins Welcome family? Nick here, and I am sans Michael today. He is not with me today, but I do have a guest, and anytime I get a chance to bring in somebody from the Urgent Care Association, I'm going to do that because we always talk about how we want to help you get more patients. We want to help you get repeat visits. We want to help you deliver better care, and we want you to be able to scale your clinics. And there is no organization out there that does it better than the UCA. That is what they're all about. So our guest today is Kristin Rastatter. She is an advocacy manager at the Urgent Care Association. Kristin's advocacy journey, she started with Meals on Wheels, where she developed a strong passion for helping others. Obviously, with Meals on Wheels, you're doing some good things. So she's now at the UCA, involved in initiatives like working with the CMS to address emergency room overuse. And more important for our listeners, she's advocating for fair reimbursement in urgent care. And as things have moved over to this quality of care, or I'll let you get into it when we get to the podcast, but just the way they pay, the way the payers work, the advocacy for this is more needed than ever. So, Kristin, welcome to Walk-ins Welcome. We're glad to have you. Say hello to the Walk-ins Welcome fam, and tell us one thing about you that nobody else knows.
Hey everyone, I'm Kristin, and one thing that nobody knows, I would say, especially because we're kind of all in a virtual world right now, so something that unless you see me in person, you will not know, I am over 6 feet tall. So when people meet me in person, they're like, "You're a giant."
I don't think you're a giant. You're just tall. That's okay. They have the tall stores for people. They don't have the short and fat for they don't do that. They call it big and tall, and I don't fit. Like I'm big but not tall, so everything, I don't know. I look like Danny DeVito and everything. 6 feet tall. How has that served you so far?
As a teenager, I hated it, but as almost 40, I've grown into it, and I have 4 kids, and they're all giants. My husband's 6'4", so we're just a tall, giant family.
So what you're saying is it had absolutely no bearing on the outcome of your adulthood, and I love that so much. So good. Same here. I can be short and dumpy and still get married and have kids and have a career and everything. I love it so much. That's good. All right. I need to hear more about Meals on Wheels. We're going to get into all the fun advocacy stuff. I can't wait to do that. But I need to tell you first that my father-in-law lives with us. And even though we don't need it, he is a recipient because of Medicaid for Meals on Wheels. How did you get into that? 2, what did you do there? Let's talk about Meals on Wheels for just a second.
Sure. I was actually, right before Meals on Wheels, I was a stay-at-home mom for almost a decade. And then when it was time, I wanted to start getting back out into the workforce. I wanted to find something I could be passionate about, something that made me feel good. And Meals on Wheels was perfect for that. We were a small nonprofit, very small staff. So I did a little bit of everything, really. I was bookkeeper, I was recipient coordinator, I was fundraising person, I was the executive assistant to the director. So I always say I did everything but bulk cooking. I never actually got in the kitchen and did the cooking, but it's such a wonderful program. You'd think I'd be a pro at bulk cooking with so many kids, but I'm not.
My son went to make a sandwich the other day for school, and he's like, "Dad, why is bread individually wrapped? It's like one slice of bread wrapped in like cellophane or something." Oh no, that's huge. I love the fact that you brought purpose into it, and I can obviously see how it's trickled into the UCA. But having purpose behind what you do keeps it from being just another mundane job, right?
Absolutely. And I feel like something else that's translated very well into UCA advocacy work. I feel like if you are passionate about something, it's almost contagious, or it can be contagious. So if you show the purpose behind it and the excitement and your passion, it kind of catches, which is how things get done. So
it is. It's a spark for sure. I know when I bring my energy to the room, you can see people kind of, straighten up a little bit, maybe lean in, you know what I mean? And people catch that, and it's so much fun. It's so different though. I could work I'm not trying to belittle McDonald's or Walmart or anything like that, but you can see the difference in somebody who has a purpose behind what they do versus somebody collecting a paycheck. And it just makes all the difference in the world. So that took you from a stay-at-home mom into the workspace with purpose and passion. And then how in the world did you transition from Meals on Wheels over to the Urgent Care Association? Tell me about that transition real quick.
Sure. Well, we moved from Florida to Georgia about a little over a year ago. So Meals on Wheels is not a remote job, obviously.
Right.
So
For
just
sure.
looking for my next passion, something that I really believed in and something that I could really get behind. And having 4 kids, I'm very familiar with urgent care and I'm very grateful for urgent care. So when I kind of came across this, it was like light bulb moment, like this is the perfect fit for me. And I
Mm.
believe it is.
That's fun. I know for us, it's weird. Like Nick, how did in the world did you get into urgent care marketing? Right. So, it's something about urgent care is a very different approach because it's like a retail healthcare. So it's experience first, care kind of equal in second, right? But it's really all
Mm-hmm.
about the experience because you have to compete with other people, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not like a hospital system. So, well, getting into advocacy real quick, you talked about the spark, kind of lighting you up for the purpose of going into the Urgent Care Association and that energy that you bring even on Meals on Wheels. But advocacy is a completely different thing. It's not just going into an urgent care and making it better. Now you're fighting on behalf of the urgent cares. I say fighting, lobbying. What's the right word for that? I know advocacy, but what do you mean by that when you say that?
I usually use the word fighting. I mean, honestly, that we're
What it feels like.
fighting for urgent care. That's the word that I use. It just some of the stuff that I didn't know about urgent care that I learned since I've started at UCA, I did not realize the payment disparity that is with urgent care. Urgent care centers are doing all of these awesome things. They have always held a high capacity through training and their enhanced facilities and all this stuff that they do, but they've never actually gotten paid for it, which
Mm,
was shocking to me that they're not getting the reimbursements that they deserve for all these great things that they're doing. So that's
right.
why I use that word fighting, because we were truly fighting tooth and nail, like jumping up and down. Hey, we're right here. We're doing all this awesome stuff. Look at all that urgent care did through COVID. Where's our support? Where's that at? So it's a fight.
It's funny that you say that. What is first of all, what is the name of that kind of reimbursement called? I think I said it wrong. It's like value-based care. Is that what it's called? The reimbursements, how you get paid?
Well, we just say right now our advocacy goal is just higher reimbursement, like blanket statement. We're starting with CMS and Medicare reimbursements.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
our current path. So we're starting at the federal level and then eventually trickling down. Federal advocacy is a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Mm,
It's
right.
a long game, multi-year thing. But once we kind of tie the CMS stuff in a nice bow, hopefully that's when we'll move on to like commercial payer reimbursement stuff because we know commercial payers make up the bulk of urgent care payments. So
Everybody's best friend, right? The
yeah,
old commercial payer.
yeah,
So
big gorilla.
I won't ask you about your feelings about United. We'll keep that to ourselves. So uh I can get it every time with a laugh, though. I know exactly where people stand with it. Um, So, what does advocacy look like? I mean, because we're going to talk about here in a minute, like how to get involved, what that looks like, how it can be intimidating, and how you remove or alleviate that intimidation. But what exactly does it look like to advocate for urgent cares and specifically for pays?
Sure, sure. So on the federal level, which is what UCA is tackling, we have our
Mhm.
lobbyist, McDermott Plus. They have been fantastic. They are kind
Okay.
of guiding us along this federal advocacy journey. So we've gotten a lot of really exciting stuff done this year. Beginning of the year, we had a congressional letter signed by 26 bipartisan members of the House, and that was sent to CMS. And in that letter, all those House members we're basically saying to CMS, look, urgent care is here. They're doing these great things. We need to find more ways to support them. So
Mm,
that was great. 26 bipartisan signatures was a huge deal. And then between then and say June or July, we were having meetings with CMS leaders and kind of talking to them about that letter, saying what are some things that we can start working on to make some more support happen, that sort of thing. Of course, CMS was non-committal. They're not going to say, "Oh yeah, this is great. We're going to jump right on this." But they were
right.
engaged. They could have
Right.
easily just pat us on the head and said, "See you never," but they didn't.
Right.
And then much to kind of everybody's surprise, CMS included urgent care in a request for information, or RFI, in the July release of the proposed physician fee schedule. And basically, an RFI is CMS's way of asking for feedback for any policy change they might be considering. So they post it on the Federal Register, it's open for public comment, and they kind of gather information that way. Even that alone, it seems like a smaller thing, but our lobbyists had already kind of told us this could take a little while to even
Sure.
get in via an RFI. So when it came out in July, we were all just very pleasantly surprised. So that was the first giant step. And then UCA made our official comment letter to that RFI. And this is kind of that next big step, what we're kind of pushing for. We tried to really hit home all of these extra things that urgent care does. So they're open outside of normal business hours. They have x-ray services, enhanced diagnostic therapy. They do so much of this stuff. So we suggested a new enhanced place of service code, and then a G code to go along with that. So these enhanced centers can be more appropriately compensated. That's where that extra additional money would come in. We're saying we're doing these enhanced things. Now, please pay us for them.
Yeah, no,
And
for
we also
sure.
talked about having the support and enabling urgent care to expand into these underserved areas. So some of these areas that don't really have a lot of healthcare options, if urgent care is supported, we can help. We're set up to help in those situations. So we tried to really kind of tie all of that in a nice bow and say, we're here. We can do this. You just got to help us. So that was really good.
This is going to sound like an insult, but I absolutely don't mean it this way toward urgent cares, but they remind me of Dollar Generals, right? So what I mean by that is like you have a grocery store that serves a community, maybe two or three that serve a community, but they put the Dollar Generals just like conveniently in place to take care of you when you need it, right?
Right.
So I don't have to
Right.
go walk down 30 different aisles. I don't have to wait to check out. I mean, I can literally go walk in, get whatever I need, check out myself, and I'm out the door. When I think of urgent care, you were talking about the smaller communities. Well, that's where you see all the Dollar Generals in these smaller
Right.
communities. They're in all the big ones too. Don't get me wrong, but man, they shine when you get out into a rural part of the country and you see they're not serving a 3 to 5 mile radius. They're serving a 30-mile radius, and they're taking really good care of those communities. So I agree with you. I think that is very overlooked in how they're compensated for sure.
Absolutely. Well, and I think it comes down to education for the patients too, because I know, using me as an example, a new mom almost 18 years ago, my first son had asthma. And so anytime he started wheezing, and if it was, 6 o'clock in the evening, I was taking him to the ER because I didn't know what to do. And then eventually his pediatrician said, unless he's bad, you can take him to urgent care. And it changed my life. It completely changed my life, being able to take him to urgent care instead of having to go to the emergency room and wait hours and spend a lot more money there. Urgent care was like our savior. So it's
I
education
think
too,
it's
letting people know when it's appropriate to go.
right. I'm very interested. You just touched on something that isn't in my notes, but I personally wanted to touch on. So let's go there for just a second because I'm selfish.
Sure.
So you said you were going to the emergency room and paying a lot more money. Okay, so with the advocacy that you're doing, you're trying to get more reimbursement coming toward urgent cares, currently Medicaid, Medicare, but then to the payer system, the private payers. And just first Kristin's second opinion, right? Like, I'm just curious about what you think. What do you expect is going to happen to the pricing of urgent cares once that happens?
Honestly, I couldn't really speculate on that. I mean, our big point that we're making to CMS is that we're set up to help with ED overcrowding and overutilization. It's a problem that they have. We've identified it. We're setting ourselves up as part of the solution for that. How CMS develops mechanisms or different policies or different structures to be able to support urgent care in those efforts, it's kind of up to them.
Right.
They've been open to suggestions from us so far, but ultimately, of course, it's going to be up to them. So I really couldn't say exactly, but we're hopeful that they'll continue to be open to what we're saying.
And do you think that, oh, I'm trying to phrase this question correctly. Okay. So we work with hundreds of locations of urgent cares. All right. And we can very quickly tell you that this urgent care does x-rays and this one doesn't. This one does this one doesn't. And I think one of the challenges for urgent care is because it's a retail healthcare space, and most likely it's privately owned unless it's part of a hospital system. There isn't really a consistency in, like, I know exactly what to expect at there. There's not this foundational service for each urgent care, right? And so the immediate thought is, well, I'm only going to an urgent care if I have the sniffles or if I have a cold or if I have a fever or something like that. Do you think like some regulation would help systemize this across the board so that everybody knows what to expect from an urgent care, and therefore it brings more value to the urgent cares to be paid more?
I think that's kind of what we're trying to do with this new enhanced place of service code. The
Okay.
definition of an enhanced urgent care that we suggested to CMS, it's basically the same definition that they have now for urgent care, but we added in some specifics like the open outside of normal business hours, advanced diagnostic and therapeutic services to get more specific. So those are the enhanced urgent care centers. So people know that they offer things like x-rays and it's not
Mm,
just sniffles and scrapes, and because some people do think that, and that's
yeah.
when they go to urgent care, which is great, but urgent care can do some of these somewhat higher acuity things, and some people don't realize that. So I think starting there and having that enhanced definition put out by CMS would be a great first step.
Right. The most used TikTok video in urgent care or Instagram reel or whatever is, it's one person like, go this way for
Oh
urgent
yeah,
care,
go this
go
way.
this way for, it's the same one, you know.
Right.
But the problem with it being the same one is it's not always the same service. You know,
Right.
I'll give you an example. When my son was 6 or 7 like that, he broke his arm at a trampoline park because that's what people do at trampoline parks.
Hmm.
And we took him to an urgent care because it was after hours, and they're like, "Yeah, we can't help you." But okay. And so we had to go to an emergency room and sit there for what felt like an eternity, even though they were,
Hmm.
by the way, the urgent care was nice to us and they helped us, but at the same time, they couldn't treat the problem. And so what I mean by that is like there's a breakdown in what an urgent care can and can't do. And I think if that was systemized across the board, and
Hmm.
you had brought, I can't remember exactly what phrase you just used, but I almost liken it as like a UCA accreditation. Like this is what it is in order to qualify for this, right?
Right, right, right. And
Gotcha.
accreditation is definitely a great place to start because that's kind of puts that stamp of approval. You have these higher standards and higher quality, and you can do all of these things. So, of course, that's a great place to start.
So getting into advocacy obviously is an intimidating thing for people who don't know what even that is, right? So how does the UCA, let's talk about the UCA involvement in this. How does the UCA specifically make it easy for people to get involved, especially if they're new to it?
Absolutely. And I agree. Some of this stuff can feel heavy. We're
Right.
talking policy change and we're talking to Congress members and we're going to Capitol Hill to have congressional meetings, and it feels a little daunting, but it's actually fun. It is fun. Every bit of feedback that I've gotten from everybody who's participated in some of our advocacy efforts, all I hear is how informative it was, how
Mm,
they learned so much, and how they just had a great time. And it's
right.
not this scary thing. And I'll say my first experience being I went to South Carolina's State House back in May. They announced Urgent Care Appreciation Day in South Carolina. So it was my first time doing something like I was fairly new to UCA. So I go into the State House and expecting, very buttoned up and very formal. And I was nervous. It was nothing like that. It was nothing
Right.
like that. It was these members of Congress are people, they're just people. They're people like you and I. They want to hear from you. about your struggles that you have going on. They want to hear if you have suggestions that could help. They're there to help, and they don't know unless you tell them. I mean, being on the floor at the State House, it was, this is Susie Q, my granddaughter. It's her first day at the State House. Everybody stand up and clap. Yay! This is the volleyball team, and they won states. Yay! So it was very not as buttoned up and stuffy as I expected it to be. So it's just, it really is fun. It is.
How could you not expect it? I mean, there's so much like vitriol when it comes to anything that even leans toward being political. And if you're discussing things with senates and oversight committees and all of these different kinds of things, and you can't help but immediately go to, do I really want to get involved in politics in any way? Like, these people are already crazy, right? So,
Right.
you know, that you're describing something very different than what I think of when I think politics. I think of one political party grilling another one on a stand and then talking over each other. It's immediately where I go. But you're saying, like, yours, stand up, say hello, say your name, you know, what are your kids' names? That kind of thing, right?
Yes.
So where do these events take place?
It's about, that one in South Carolina was arranged by one of our UCA members. He had a existing relationship with one of the representatives there. They have a friendship. They started talking and they made it happen. It wasn't this, I say federal advocacy is, again, marathon, not a sprint. Grassroots advocacy, so kind of like that, more localized stuff, can be a lot faster pace. It can, I think it was like from start to finish. Patrick O'Malley is our UCA member. He got a call from Chris Wooten and they said, let's do this in 3 weeks. And then before you know it, we were all in South Carolina. It was 3 weeks later and it was declared Urgent Care Appreciation Day. So anybody can do that. If you don't personally know a member of Congress, I'm sure you know somebody who does, or somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, or there's connections everywhere if we actually just look for them. And it's about relationships are kind of the core of advocacy. Just attending some of their fundraisers and just getting FaceTime with them, building that relationship. It's the core of how things get done with advocacy. And it's really important to just put yourself out there a little bit. And we try at UCA to make it as easy as possible. We have template emails. One of the big things that we would love for people to do right now is, beginning of the year, we worked on the House with that congressional letter. Now we are working on the Senate for another congressional letter to CMS. So smaller pool of people, but site visits. If you can get a member of Congress or their staff to come out and just tour your center, just show them all the awesome things that you're doing. You're great every day, so just let them watch you be great. It doesn't have to be this really, big formal thing. It's just, we have a email template that I can give you. So all you do is plug in your information. I'll give you the email addresses to send them to. I have a toolkit that I can give you. I'll jump on prep calls with you. I mean, we try to make it as easy as possible, but that's one of the huge things that people can do right now. And it's fun. It builds staff morale. You can make like a fun day out of it for your staff. And it makes a big impact because it starts that relationship with that senator's office. So that's really important right now.
Well, just going back a few minutes into the story you were telling, is you said that event in South Carolina started with a UCA, a urgent care that got involved with the UCA to set this up. Right. The next thing that you said, and this is really where I want to dig in with the audience, is it's not what you know, it's who you have access to and the influence in your circle that you're going to be able to make the biggest impact. This is going to sound bad, but like, you're not the secret. You're just part of the bigger picture. Right. So the scary part for me tends to go away a little bit when it's not on my shoulders. It's just through my introductions where the impact's going to be made. Right.
Absolutely.
Now we have people listening on this podcast that are hundreds of locations. We've heard from them. We have people on this podcast that are 3 to 5 to 7 locations. We have people that haven't even opened up their doors yet. They're in startup mode And to me, very exciting place to be. I love startup clinics. So like there's just this freshness to them. It's really cool. I like that. So anyway, that's the gambit. That's who we have listening. Knowing the scope and the size of these clinics, how can you get somebody at wherever they are in their journey in their urgent care? What's their next best step to get involved in advocacy?
I would say a great first start is if they are not UCA members to reach out to the membership team. The number one question we get from other stakeholders is, how many are in your membership? How many members do you have? UCA is the trade association for urgent cares. There's over 14,000 centers in the US now.
Yep,
Our membership is a little over 4,000 of those. So there's power in numbers. So that alone does a lot, just being a part of UCA. Always reaching out to me is always a great first step. I am happy to brainstorm because, like you said, depending on where you're at in your urgent care journey, my answer might be different. Depending on where you're at in the country, my answer might be different. But I love people reaching out and saying, I want to help, but I don't know exactly where to start. And by the end of our conversation, we have a plan in place for what they can do, what they want to do. I give them templates and toolkits and connect them with the right people. And it comes together beautifully. So I think that would be a great first step. Just have people reach out to me to brainstorm.
I love it. And we'll drop your information in the show notes so that people can either connect with you on LinkedIn or whatever way you gave me is what we're going to put in the show notes. I don't want to put your email out there for the world and you get spammed by everybody overseas, right? But LinkedIn, at least you can reject that if you need to. But I don't want to end just yet. There was something specifically that I wanted to ask. So we know that you're working on big initiatives with CMS. We know that it's specifically regarding emergency room overuse, fair pay for urgent cares. Just if you're able to, because I don't know like NDAs and all that, but like break down just a couple of these projects. What do they look like?
As far like specific ones with CMS or outside of that?
No, with CMS.
Honestly, it's just keeping them engaged. So there's not specific initiatives that we're doing. Like coming up, we're going to be meeting with CMS leaders again. Okay. So to a certain extent, we kind of have to follow their lead and pivot as we go along, depending on how they respond. So next step is meeting again with CMS leaders and then doing these site visits that I was talking about with senators' offices. Again, I can't stress the importance of those. It is so different to have those senators' offices and their staffers meet you in person, see your centers, and then later when our lobbyist and us follow it up with a Zoom call, we can say, oh yeah, they came, we did a visit at their center and we saw them do this. And my mom lives down the road from there and they've treated her before. So that's more of those connections that they're building. And they're going to stick in, we are going to stick in their minds more when those kind of connections are made. So that's really what we're really focusing on now, meeting with CMS leaders, doing those site visits. We have our Capitol Hill Advocacy Day, or I call it CHAD, which is our lobby day that's coming up in February. And that's where UCA members come together on Capitol Hill and again, go to those congressional meetings and get more support for urgent care and that Senate letter that we have. So those are the next kind of big things that we have going on, and they're all really exciting stuff.
I love it. It's so good. So the first right step, y'all join the UCA. If you're not already a member, join the UCA. Even as a vendor to urgent cares with Patient Care Marketing Pros, we are members of the UCA because we believe in what they're trying to do. So that's your first step is let's get involved in the UCA. There is power in numbers. The second thing I want to challenge you to do is if anything on this podcast has kind of stirred your interest a little bit, reach out to Kristin. I'll put her contact information in the show notes for the best way for you to get in touch with Kristin. She seems to me like she's nice enough to talk to you. We've met at another event before at a UCA conference, probably in Las Vegas. And I'll tell you, if you haven't planned to go to the Texas event in 25, I can speak from experience. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. And this is coming from a vendor. I don't even get to go do all the cool stuff like the breakout rooms. I have to stand there and just wait on you to come see me at the booth. And then
I'm going to have an advocacy hub again, so you can stop by and talk to me about advocacy. And yeah.
Kristin, thank you. I want you to, we'll say bye here, but I want you to, any parting words for the audience, anything to stir them up a little bit. Now's your chance.
Sure. You can always, again, reach out to me, go to our website. I have a little advocacy section of the website. It's got a little roadmap. And my favorite line that I like to use, and I use it at the end of all of my newsletter videos, is advocacy works. It really does. It works. If we band together, we can get stuff done. It's just going to take all of us working together. So hopefully I'll get to work with lots and lots of people very soon.
All right, let's reach out to Kristin because we all want to get paid more money, right?
That's right.
Awesome. All right, Kristin, thank you for being a guest on Walk-Ins Welcome. We're so glad to have you. I hope there's an opportunity in the near future for you to come back on. I want to hear about progress. I know our audience wants to hear about how things are progressing, and the best way for them to find that out is to get involved. And that's the last parting shot I'll give you. Have a great week. We'll see you next Wednesday. Kristin, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
All right, see ya.